Speaking of reparations, Malcolm X family is suing the FBI, the CIA, and the New York Police Department for $100 million. You spoke about this on a Twitter space last night, Judge. News Toter. This was a really good Twitter space. And just, we don't have to go on much details because we're, winding down on time. But, I wanted to play this clip real quick, and then I want to get your thoughts on the lawsuit. Do you think they have a good chance? I do. I hope so.
Let me years our family has fought for the truth to come to light concerning his murder, and we'd like our father to receive the justice that he deserves. The truth about the circumstances leading to the death of our father is important, not only to his family, but to many followers, many admirers, many who look to him for guidance, for love. And it is our hope that litigation of this case will finally provide some unanswered questions. We want justice served for our father.
So we got to speak behind the scenes. You spoke on Twitter Space. So for the audience here on YouTube, what are your thoughts on this law?
Synthesis, statute of limitations, 1, 2, sovereign immunity, 3. Are there any actual defendants still alive? 4. And you want to do some litigation, well, I won't comment on that. It's like, I would suggest maybe I won't comment on that. But okay, anyway.
Martin Luther King family, they sued the government and they won.
They didn't sue the government. I was the ballistics expert for the family in that trial. They did not sue the government.
Yeah, but they got $1. They just wanted $1.
No, they didn't sue the government.
Who did they sue?
The defendant was a named individual.
Who did they sue?
A private person who was still alive.
So, but they got $1 because the government admitted that they were.
No, the government didn't admit anything. They proved their case, which was that James Earl Ray did not. And because of circumstantial evidence, there was a more likely than not case made out against a civilian.
Okay. Well,
which I think actually he wasn't the guy, but
okay. So with this lawsuit, maybe part of that lawsuit, they're saying the men who were arrested and convicted did not kill Malcolm X.
Well, it may be, but the point is who did.
They're saying that the FBI, the CIA, and the New York Police Department knew. They had evidence and they knew about it. So that's what they have to prove.
Well, no, they have to prove a bit more than that. In order to get around what they're going to get into what they're talking about, they'd have to prove a conspiracy, which would break down some of the very stringent proof requirements. If they could establish a conspiracy, they would have to connect through some contrivance person, artifact, artifice or something to connect the entities they're trying to name with the events. Now, it might be that there is, for political purposes, some reason for the powers that be who would be representing the defendants to concede and maybe settle this, but that wouldn't resolve any historical questions. I still am a big fan of Malcolm X. I think, as I said last night, he was the great one. It wasn't Dr. King. It wasn't Stokely Carmichael. It was between Malcolm and H. Rap Brown when it came down to being able to bring a target audience to maximum motivation. Now, that said, Malcolm wasn't in his prime yet, hadn't gotten to his prime yet. He wasn't even 40, and he was morphing into a bigger person when he met his demise. So yes, there are certain things that they're going to have to do. They have to connect the gunman with the events. And the gunmen were not hiding. They were in the open. They were in the audience. There were many, many witnesses, eyewitnesses. The identification was done. So you'll have to show a connection between those individuals and the entities who are the subject of this lawsuit. Now, I'm not in any way contending that the FBI and the federal government did not have anything to do with this. They quite may have had something to do with it, a lot to do with it. But proving that might be very interesting. See, for example, it's been early 1965, so that's 58 years ago, and 58 plus 30 is 88 if somebody was nominally 30, but if somebody set this up, they were likely 40, so that would mean somebody is 90 something if they're still alive. So you'd have to find that person to bring into showing the connection from that person to one of the gunmen.
No. They're suing the FBI and the CIA and the
I know
police
it doesn't make it. You can sue anybody you want.
No, they're suing them, saying that they knew and they did not.
They have to prove it. And then the other thing is,
it doesn't matter how old anybody. We're talking
no. You have to have evidence. You just can't say hearsay.
I get it, but you're talking about someone 90 years old. You just need evidence.
In other words, why I said 90 years old, because the likelihood is everybody that they need to make the connection from the gunman to the agency to entity is dead. So there is a big jump, because the only thing that could happen is the actors could say, I was told to do this, or advised that I would be supported if, or encouraged to do this by the following people. But if that person's dead, then you run into the hearsay thing. Well, okay, let's depose him. Where is the statement from this guy admitting it, rather than you just going off the top of your head saying, he told me.
FBI or CIA documents during that time stating that I know that this person is going to be doing this, but it has to be some type of documentation.
It's still not going to wash, because the U.S. Supreme Court just recently reiterated its position. Law enforcement has no obligation to protect anyone not in their custody. So they might have known about it, but they had no obligation to intervene. That's not going to get you in a lawsuit. Now, I appreciate what's being done, but it's a political thing. The likelihood of success in a real live lawsuit is extremely low. I'm not saying that in today's environment, with politics being what it is, that there is not the possibility that somebody in charge might not settle the thing today to make a political statement by implicating something in the past, somebody in the past, or scapegoating something in the past, or attempting to set up a PC situation. Well, look, we're your friends. See what we did? You need to continue to support us as we sell you out. So, and we have somebody in there who is a settler of cases, not a trier of cases, but a settler of cases. So you got the crew together to set that up. And there are some things these days that I look at locally, nationally, statewide, other side of the continent, where there have been settlements that have been politically driven, because the people that settled were essentially elected or appointed officials who didn't have any personal money at stake. They just had a political position that was being advanced. So If your political position is advanced by conceding that, okay, this guy did wrong, let's settle it, then you earn something, because it's not your money the way that person would look at it. It belongs to the taxpayers, and they ought to be doing this for their own good anyway. See, that's how that works. Now, if that happens, somebody might get some money, but nothing's going to come out of it, because the problem is that the FBI and the suspects who are institutions are still doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So did you want to comment?
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with the judge 100%, because Hoover is gone. You can't ask J. Edgar Hoover,
Piece of
you
shit.
know. Yeah, he's
Let's
a
dig him
character,
up.
but he's
Let's
not
dig him
alive
up.
anymore.
Let's dig him up and put some voodoo on him. He's from Louisiana. Let's put some voodoo on it, boy.
And he's the main person you probably need to talk to, as well as the people that were underneath him that were working with him. And most of those people are I imagine they're dead. I don't think any of them are still around. And, you know, the other thing is, ask Farrakhan. Maybe he might, you know, you can get something out of him. He's the other person that's alive that they definitely should be talking to.
Why?
Is
He had
Louis
nothing to
Farrakhan.
do with his assassination.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Okay, because wasn't it
came
his
out already.
father that kicked out Malcolm to begin with, and Malcolm went out on his own when he went to Mecca
Elijah
to
Muhammad
go
was
see
not
all the
Farrakhan's
white
father.
Muslims, the brown Muslims, the red Muslims? Wasn't that correct? The yellow Muslims. He saw everybody. He came back and said, "Hey, everybody can be Muslim," and they said no. And
Elijah
then he got
Muhammad
banished.
was not Farrakhan's father. That's number one.
Mhm.
That was his leader of Nation of Islam, but
The father, leader, he looked at him the same. So it's like, Farrakhan, you can't say he doesn't know.
Farrakhan didn't put the order in for that. He wasn't.
I'm not going to say put the order, but he.
No. Farrakhan had to wait. Farrakhan in 1965, he was not a leader of nothing in the Nation of Islam. He was
exactly
one of the preachers, so he didn't have that type of power. So
Dana, that's exactly my point. He was a foot soldier. Judge will get this. He was a foot soldier for the leader. A foot soldier. You know, a hired assassin, you know, a hired foot soldier. You send out to pass out messages
of Drew or nobody else. You can't say that he was not an assassin, Farrakhan. But I see what you're saying, that yes, he was a foot soldier, preacher, whatever, but he was not ordered.
He knows something. That's what we got to get to, Dana.
You saying he knew something.
Yeah.
Let me break this down. Let's cut to the chase. Abraham Lincoln still has some relatives or descendants alive, all right? So let's suppose they decided to sue individuals in the U.S. Department of War who knew that John Wilkes Booth, or should have, was going to assassinate Lincoln. Now, how do you set them up with being successful in that lawsuit? Well, obviously, it's 158 years ago. That's a long time. This was 58 years ago, 100 years less, but it's still been a long time. So you see what the problem is? You might be able to set that up, but who's around to set it up through? Because when you do an action like this, there has to be personal involvement. You just can't say somebody with this institution may have done something that was complicit. What that was, we don't know, because there's no live witness, no written trail to establish that. And remember, a lot of things you didn't put in writing, or you destroyed the memo when it got done. So there is no paper trail. So if you get one of the gunmen who says, Agent John Jones contacted me. Well, where's Agent John Jones? Well, he passed away in 1996, or he passed away in 2011 at 89 years old. Well, you know, come on. How do we know he went to the FBI? Prove it.
And the other thing is, Judge, Hoover and anybody that could have possibly had notes or documents or video footage, they destroyed, you know this, they destroyed all that stuff. They knew that stuff was hot, it was toxic, and as soon as they had it, they had to get rid of it, because if anybody saw something slip between the cracks, they could possibly have a problem.
Now, I'll tell you this, 3 years later, when they assassinated King, these fools actually did have memoranda, and there are copies of them that were in the file. They got secured through the repository for records on assassinations and assassination attempts that used to be on 14th Street in downtown DC. It's since moved out to Bethesda, Maryland. So maybe, but then again, does this crew know how to get that kind of thing? They may or may not know how to do that. Now, that takes a special kind of research to go there and to at least start getting a trail going. And that repository has been closed down for, 15 years, maybe longer than that. So it got enabled by 1989 Act of Congress, executive order signed by the first Bush and another one by Bill Clinton. So they might have a problem getting into that, but there might be something in writing, but still you have to have a witness, somebody that can authenticate all of this. Like, who is that? Well, J. Edgar Hoover. Well, prove it.
Okay. No, I see what you're saying. Yes, you always have to have proof. So, listen, I'm rooting for the family. I hope they do get justice. Excuse me. I want to say thank you to 100 Black. He became a member. She sent in a super chat. She said, "You are amazing. Thank you." Kelly Mills. Hey, Dana, would you ask the judge, why does he think they took so long to file a case? Great show. Good question.
You mean on the Malcolm thing?
I think so.
Same problem. Who did it? Where is your proof? Who are your witnesses? Where is the physical evidence, if any? What are your chains of custody? What's the explanation? What happened? Well, maybe somebody said, hey, if we file this, at least let's get some money out of it. Maybe we can get a settlement. Maybe there are those who want to make a political case out of this whole thing, who are in charge now, who would settle it for that purpose. See,
so wait, let me throw this in here, because she said, why do you think it took so long? So maybe the reason why it took so long, for what you're saying, as far as evidence, maybe they did come across some evidence that's in their favor. And that's why.
Well, the problem is it gets stale, because here's the other thing. What is your statute of limitations? See, you're talking about a personal injury.
Yeah.
Now,
wait.
Technically, this is important.
In New York, so maybe that.
No, in New York too. In New York
they did
too.
change some laws with
statute. No, hold on. New York too. This is the thing. If I do you wrong, you have a statutorily defined time in which you can bring an action against me. All right. If I did you wrong and I die, your cause of action dies with me. All right. Now, if I do you wrong and you die, your relatives have an immediate cause of action against me for wrongful death. If I die in the process of killing you, like in a car wreck, they have a wrongful death action against my estate. That's personal. If I am dead and the statute of limitations has passed, they can't attack the estate. Now, the statute of limitations against any one individual has long expired, because when you're talking about a personal injury, you've got one thing going here against you, statute of limitations, that for a first degree planned murder, when it comes to a criminal matter, you do not have, because in most states and for the United States, there is no statute of limitations for first-degree murder. The time never runs. But in this case, you are talking civil. So you have to have all statute of limitations compliance is necessary for the state where it occurs, New York. You have to deal with the fact that perhaps this scheme arose outside of New York. What is it? Washington, D.C., which brings up conflict of law. You're involving federal agencies, and you have to have standing to sue the agency, which you don't always have. And there are some limitations that apply to that. So what I think they're counting on is this. If we have this situation and you are on the putative defendant side, meaning hypothetically you would be representing the defendant, I represent the plaintiff who's claiming a wrong, but we're both on the same political platform, and you just have signatory authority over the tax dollars that ain't coming out of your pocket. You can say, hey, this makes my political party look good, so I'll sign off on it. So for the trouble of raising these issues, this is how many million you're going to get. And my side, you can give me a little under the table, but on my side, what we want is a political advantage because everybody is looking at us like we're a bunch of incompetents. We haven't delivered on reparations. We haven't done anything through the Black Caucus. But maybe if we do this, and the racist in the White House and the fake half-breed in the vice presidency, maybe everybody will overlook them if we do something for Malcolm X's kinfolk. It won't cost us a dime because it belongs to the taxpayers. So we'll sign off on it and look good. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going on, but that's a possibility.
Okay. Great
But
point.
then again, when I look at that, I look at all of the other Black people that have died before and after who have gotten no justice. So they weren't politically convenient. So they just got swept under the rug. And then I get offended.
Okay.
Don't judge him, Joe Brown.